I told you that a lot of people think our intro is cool.
Really?
That disruptive mind thing. I still have no idea how you made it. You have the most impressive digital skills of anybody I know. That's awesome. I wish I could show you I should show you the little slideshows that Connor and I are making for our different courses. Mm-hmm. It's so bad.
Oh man.
So bad. But we knew it was allowed to be bad because the guy that we're copying on courses, who's just like absolutely crushing it, his slides are just like white with black words, and he scribbles on them with his iPad whenever he wants to like make extra notes. And that's all you got to do?
Okay. It's basically like a book.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, just book pages.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep.
That's pretty nice. Wow. I'd like to say thank you for the compliment.
Sure.
Just
I don't know how you built it up, man. I don't get it.
I just went on YouTube and I was like, give me the Marvel introduction, like production scheme. And it was like, oh, here you go.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so I just did a really slow, like, because theirs is way more complicated. They have like 380 different like things they show in the background, and they like piece
Oh yeah,
it
yeah,
together.
yeah. And it's like comic book things.
Yeah, but it
and it's
was like step 1, 2, 3. So if you're saying I have technical skills, I would say it's just a matter of reading instructions.
Taking it back to last episode, I think it's communication skills. Because
So
I
the
would have...
instructions communicate well to me what to press on the computer.
No, not really. It's you communicating to the computer what you want. Because if that were up to me, I would have gone to the computer and said, give me a cool introduction for podcasts. I would have never thought, like, first off, you had something in your head that you were like, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
And then you were able to compare it to something that is close enough, but can be tweaked. And then you were like, yeah, show me how to do that thing. Like you were able to narrow down to the specific skills you needed to put it in the computer to tell you what you like I would have never thought. I even look like until you just said that, I didn't even think like it is like the Marvel introduction.
Yeah.
I would have never thought that, So
And there were more instructions on how to make it the 3D and add the other layers to go in between. I was like, I would like some detail, but not all that detail right now. Like maybe one day I'll go for it, but not yet. But so the communication, and it's not a vocabulary level, it's just what details you put where.
Yeah.
Which now they sell courses on that for ChatGPT. They're like how to ask good questions, basically.
Yeah.
They're like, we're gonna give you prompts. It's like, you're calling it a prompt, but it's really just, we're gonna help you ask better questions.
That's it. We're going to help you clarify in your mind what you need so that you can get the right response. Anyway, that is, man, that's just a little highlight of your skill set that kind of sits there in the darkness. Nobody would have thought. I guarantee you, nobody would have thought. Go Google or go YouTube how they made the Marvel one, and then I'm just going to like add and subtract what I want from that. So that's cool.
Okay.
That makes it so much cooler now. Now I'm like, oh yeah, it is. Just like, it's like inverted Marvel where the letters do all of the things.
Set us up behind it, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's freaking cool.
There was even a template for the background part where you could just drop the pictures in and it would flicker them as necessary. So
That's so crazy, dude. All free? Like it's just all templates that you were just like, yeah, sure.
it was free. So Premiere Pro costs money per month. It's like $30.
What is Premiere Pro? What tool is
It's
that?
the video editing software that puts all the stuff together, all the layers.
I'm exposing myself here. Most of the people who have talked to me about the podcast, I go, yeah, I don't know anything about. Dylan is just like the man behind the machine and crushes it, and I just show up and talk.
Oh, well, okay. So Jimmy asked questions the other day about like what we use to distribute.
Yeah.
He's like, do you have to like go to Apple and all these different places? I was like, no, it's Buzzsprout.
Yeah.
It's $13 a month and they do it all. So what about the logo? I was like, I asked DALL-E 2, which is
I use DALL-E
which is
all
an
the time.
AI generative model, and I asked it to show me what growing a brain, kind of like a plant, looks like, and it made what you see as the logo.
Yeah.
which literally is a brain growing out of a clay pot.
It's kind of cool.
It's like, okay, just go, make something happen. Could sit forever and come up with a bad idea that I thought it was good because I spent a lot of time on it.
Yeah.
But no. Yeah, that's it, y'all. Just Google how do I make a podcast, and it's like 8 steps. Basically, what I just said.
Well, you know who asks us a lot are our good friends at the Days In podcast, Will and Cody and them. They're always very intrigued by like how it all goes together, and they always ask me. You know, they ask me some question. I'm like, I don't know. By the way, we need to communicate with them. They've been talking about coming here. I think Will and Cody want to come here and mic all 4 of us up and go to the pub and do an audio Days In podcast at the pub. So
All right.
something tells me that was supposed to happen in October. I don't know what's up with them, but
It is October.
it is October.
Yeah.
So they're going to appreciate the shout out. Days In podcast.
Days End.
Those guys are hustling. Okay, so before we jumped in, and we didn't talk about this at all last time, I don't think, about living alone and the concept of living alone. Start us off. What struck you? First off, you live alone.
I do. Things that strike me about living alone.
Or about the conversation we had offline.
Honestly, let's borrow Jimmy's uncommon man model and break it down from business, community, family, then faith.
As a person who lives alone?
As just like go through quick aspects. Business-wise, it's been brought to my attention that most of the time if a employer or a group of employees know that their coworker is single, they will often ask them to do more stuff because they think they have more free time.
Interesting.
Business.
Very interesting.
Put that one out there. I could imagine how you could see more high performers as being single because they do have the time. I guess you could put that together, maybe. Don't think it's probably accurate. Don't think it's going to be like a majority or anything, but because their quality of life may not be as good, which we'll get into as we get into community, family, and faith. Community-wise, a single person, once again, could be more in the community because you could say they have more time, or they could be less connected because they're without a partner to connect them into more avenues. Family. Well, you don't have clearly your spousal family, or if you're in a divided household, you may have kids sometimes. Maybe you have good relationships with your brothers or sisters, aunts, uncles, all that, but probably not in your household, most likely. And then faith-wise, you would have more time with God, but you would also have more time without being where 2 or 3 are gathered, so you can be allowed to go further into a tangent or into something that's not necessarily of God or not in alignment with your faith, but you developed a story out for longer, and so then you're kind of like stuck with it, and then it takes untangling. Which you can do the same thing with your partner or your group of friends or whatever, but left alone, I imagine you could do that more often.
Yeah.
Whole like curiosity kills the cat, or idle hands, the devil's playground type of deal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Interesting.
All right. There's 4 thoughts.
So my family, my immediate family knows that I think living alone is the hardest thing a person can do. It's the worst way to go about living day-to-day life, in my opinion. And that's because I've done it. And I tell people that when I lived alone, that's when I was the most anxious. Health anxiety. I was in school at the time. It was college, so college, like school anxiety, like social anxiety. Everything was harder and scarier. There were probably bouts of depression. I don't really know like what depression is clinically, but definitely something along those lines.
It's like being uncomfortable with your current circumstances, and there's probably a varying degree.
Definitely a varying
I'd
degree.
say.
I hear from people that a cornerstone of depression, or like the telltale sign of depression, is not about like being sad as much as it is about being like numb
Yeah.
and like totally hiding from emotions and feeling. So I was definitely that, definitely anxious. And at the time, you don't think like, oh, this is because I'm living alone. You have different things in your mind. You have time to sit around and think about other things that could be causing it. It's like, I don't know. It is the what'd you say? The devil's hand, or the
Idle hands of the devil's
idle
playground.
hands of the devil's playground. Anyway, there's something truly negative about it, and I think it starts with the community. We've talked about this before. I have a big mission for community. Build your community up. Community will build you up. And what I find in community is it fights that loneliness. Loneliness is the sickness of the person that lives alone most of the time. And loneliness is dangerous because it begets more loneliness. It's a flywheel where you're lonely and you get an opportunity to go out with friends. But because there's just something about it in your head or whatever that you think, oh, well, you know, maybe there'll be another chance next time. I'm not going to do it this time. I want to stay and watch Netflix. It's easier to watch Netflix than it is to put yourself out there and go hang out with your friends. You don't know what they're going to be wearing, so you're like, what should I wear? You don't know what's going to be around you. I mean, just like ticky-tacky
Braden, you worry
things.
about what you wear?
No, I don't worry about what I wear ever. I can't say that's my problem. But in the mind of the person that lives alone, it is so, the easy path is to stay alone. It's easy to be alone. It's easy to watch what you want to watch. It's easy to eat what you want to eat. It's easy to be around who you want to be around. The hard path is getting out there and doing what other people want for the sake of just being able to be around other people.
Inertia.
Exactly. And so whenever you're lonely, you take the easy path, which is choosing to stay alone, which begets more loneliness. And that, it's only a matter of time before that creates an onset of different anxieties and different problems or whatever. So that's really the core. At its most simple, that's the core of what I feel about living alone, is that it just sets you up for the easy path. Whereas, let's say you live with somebody, a roommate or a spouse or whatever, they got things to do too. And you got to go do it. Like, you know how many times I'm forced to go out to go do something with, I love it though. And Megan it's been such a blessing being with Megan when I'm forced to go out with her friends or forced to go out and do whatever it is, X, Y, Z, because I don't want to do it. And it's so much easier for me to just stay at home and do something else. But instead I go out and, dude, I mean, there was a time where we went to like her coworker's birthday and I didn't want to go, not at all, but I was forced to go out. And when I went out, I ended up having more fun than her. Met some of the dads of other, some of the husbands of other like kind of dance community people or whatever. Totally hit it off. We started having a great time. We started having drinks. It was awesome. Those experiences don't happen whenever you live alone because there's nobody to force you to go.
Agreed. Formulating how to say this. Loading. I have an idealistic view that we should be able to spur that desire to go out on our own, or to, like, if you are lonely, to do those things. If you don't have it, I'm less able to give anyone the prescription on how to like get that desire in you. But yeah, I think you should be able to find that somehow. But it's probably a tool that people need to have to like take good inventory of how their life is and what hurts and what's painful, and be like, oh, it's because I'm missing this, and then be like, all I need to do is go out. I need to go sit awkwardly at the coffee shop and be that person that, walk up to some random
Says
person
hi.
because they're wearing a hat with something I like on it and just
Yep.
do it.
But that's hard. But that sets you up for good things.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing.
Yep.
That's not hard. I'm just saying that if the problem, well, as long as you have the tool to see what the problem is, the solution's really simple.
True.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, you have to name it to tame it.
Yep. There we go.
Have to name
There it
to
is.
tame
There's the
it.
name it to tame it.
You're exactly right. And honestly, like, unfortunately, once you get to adult life, post-college, sometimes work does this. So sometimes work is a good tool for this, but not always. And it ends up just being work, is the forced social interactions go away.
Shared struggle, all that. Is not as-
Dude, the only reason I got out of it, living alone, was I met, Adam. I met Adam from class. And I was like, hey, I'm having a hard time. You're having a hard time. We should work on homework together, make things happen. And then that, that got me out of now I have to go 3 times a week to go do homework. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that was a social construction that was outside of my power and took the power away from me in a way.
yeah.
Which maybe is an element of what Sunday church service does for people, which is good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give an example of something that I saw recently and tie it back in, hopefully. So Megan and I have been doing kind of these baby courses. And they have this thing, it's for babies breastfeeding babies. It's called nipple confusion. And it's been a problem for a while, and they think they've just now discovered the reason. Here's what the issue is. It's if there's a breastfeeding mother who then gives the baby a bottle, all of a sudden the baby prefers the bottle. And they're like, why? They're like, is it just what's the deal? That's the nipple confusion, right? What does it prefer? And they said it has really not a lot to do, nowadays they're saying it doesn't really have a lot to do with the nipple of the bottle, the tip of the bottle or whatever. It has everything to do with the construction of the bottle and the way you do the feeding, which is this, right? In the little video, they take a bottle full of milk, they dump it upside down, and it's just drip, 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 drip. And they're like, the baby doesn't have to do anything with the bottle. It's the easy
So you
path.
made it easier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The baby goes, why would I do the hard thing if you can just lay me down and this thing just goes? What am I thinking? You know what I mean? And so they have a solution now, which is rather than changing the nipples of the bottle or all the stupid stuff that they've been trying in the past, now it's a technique issue where they say, hey, don't hold the baby flat and have the bottle upside down. Hold the baby up and make the baby kind of work for it. And also, if you hear the baby going too fast, just kind of tip them over so that there's no milk in the nipple and let them go at it for a while without any reward. So you artificially create difficulty in the process. And they say that that's there you go, that solves the problem. So you got to artificially create problem or artificially create difficulty in staying at home and watching Netflix or things like that. I don't know how you do that, but that's what you got to do.
You got to do that for yourself, or you got to do that for your friends.
That's true. That's also true. It's so that was the next thing I was going to get to is taking care of the people who are living alone. And if you're not in that position, understanding that position and knowing what to do about it. That's big too. Tell me about you. What gets you out and about? Why do you go out and about? Are you just naturally inclined to do that? I mean, you go out and do things all the time.
Yeah. There's a couple reasons. I have everything I need for this moment, but if God has something out there for me, it's clearly I'm not going to get it just right here. There's one. Real simple, real broad, I know. I'm very thankful that either there's people in my life that recognize that I'm alone and they happen to invite me out to things. Maybe it's that they like when I come out and hang out with them. I don't know. Don't care. Either way,
You
like,
go do
cool.
it. You say yes every time. What's your percentage of yeses versus nos?
About 50.
Okay.
Being alone, though, I've also been in the same area for a very long time and been practicing the whole go to the same place and do the same thing for really long periods of time, just over and over again. It may not be, we did I was going to call it St. Patty's Pub. This is not, It's Always Sunny.
Patty's Pub.
Yeah. LT Corner Market,
Corner
or
Pub.
LT Corner Pub, the gym,
Yeah.
the car shows, church, like show up at the same places multiple days a week doing the same things. That, I do live close to my parents. Yeah.
That's just what gets you out, huh? There's a
I got things I gotta do.
yeah, which is good.
Yeah.
That's good. Like
Fine.
that's what
Yeah.
you want. You've artificially made it that way. Mm-hmm. You've almost artificially. Let's talk about Pooties.
Oh. see,
They
Pooties.
count on you to be there.
Do that on Wednesdays a lot.
Like you have to be there. If you're not, that's a problem. So you've artificially created barriers where it's like, yeah, it would be easier for me to sit and watch Netflix, but if I let these people down, like, that's bad. That's interesting. There's also an element of that is like it compounded over time, where
Oh yeah.
the pub, right? The first time I went to the pub, they didn't know us. They took our cards right up front. They're like, these guys could run. And they did that for, I don't know how many weeks, several weeks.
Yeah.
Then they kind of got to know us, said, okay, yeah, don't worry about the card. And then they would chat it up with us and talk with us. And you reach a point where whenever we walk in the door, they just start pouring our drinks. And that takes time to build that community around you. And I think
That's all it is too.
people expect it to be immediate though, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm reminded when you talk about you just got out there and did it, like the idea that God has something out there for you and it's your job to go seek it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that I want to hit on that, but the first one, it's an element of chance there. Like you're setting there's a 100% chance that you will not get anything if you sit by yourself at home.
100%.
Even if there's a low chance that going out something good happens, at least you're going back to positioning from last episode, you're positioning yourself for optionality.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, and this is the way I think about prayer a lot of times. I mean, this is the way I pray. It came from Phil Arstedt.
Ah, okay.
And I don't know if you were there for the men's morning meeting when he talked about this, but he talked about manna. And he talked about how manna was the promise that God would provide for his people. And talks about in the wilderness, every day the manna was there. Every day they had manna. But, and this is much like the baby example, the manna did not just show up in their hands or in their tents. They had to go out and pick it. They had to go outside and actually work to go gather it and get it. And he ties that back to Jesus' prayer, give me this day our daily bread. And he says that's the manna. God has it for us. Every single day manna is there. Every single day he puts it out there and raises it up for you. But it's on you to get out there and go get it. Right?
Yeah.
And that is a mindset that people need to have, that you have there. Like that's what you're doing. I think that's what you're doing.
To some extent, sure. I would attribute it to people's testimonies to me about how they've got what they got or how they've got to where they are. I know a lot of people are like, I was honestly just sleeping in a ditch one day and this guy pulled up and was like, hey, probably need some money to pay for a place to live, huh? The guy, he said yes. The man got him in, got him a job fixing ACs, and then 5 or 6 years later he started his own AC company. and construction stuff. And guy was just in the stream. Another man one time, I was actually assigned the task of going and asking people face to face for a bunch of money for the startup as part of a project we were doing. And it was supposed to be really more money than we could justify. It was really weird, but it was good. I'm going to him and he said no, but he gave me a great testimony about how you got to he related it to fishing. He was like, you got to put your lure in the stream if you want to catch a fish. You know, got to be in the game. You got to be going out towards something.
Yeah.
And because what got him into it, he was going to be a horticulturalist. He's going to be a farmer, basically.
Okay.
And he was out with his buddies one night just because they had invited him out, and they started talking about the real estate in Austin, and this was like late 80s, and he got into like that first big boom of commercial real estate development and all that in real estate. And he's like, boom, that kind of propelled me through to where I am today.
Yeah.
He's like, because I was at the bar with my friends
That's
talking about
it,
I don't know
man.
what. So a lot of testimonies like that come to mind about what builds my faith. My faith is built up of those testimonies being like, it's where it is. It's
Yeah.
out there.
It's amazing how that happens, how the stories build up people's faith. But they don't even get the stories if they don't go out to hear them. That in of itself is manna, right? Like,
Yeah.
where were you when that guy told that story? Were you sitting in your house,
No.
hanging out? You know?
I was sweating, sitting on a bench outside across from him because I was like, what am I?
Oh, that's right. This was out giving the money out. Is that what you said?
No. This one was out. I was asking for money for a startup.
Oh,
But yeah, I was sweating because I was like, why am I about to ask this guy these things? And hey, turned out great. Did I get what I went there to get? No, I think I got something that's more sustaining though.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You got the story that told you keep going out. That's so interesting. I think that is what, when I was living alone, that's the mindset that I was missing. 100% was the idea that, oh man, and I know that this is not, biblical, but there's a hint of truth to it that I think it warrants at least being out there, which is Ben Franklin wrote in his autobiography, God helps those who help themselves, basically. And there's a lot of things of that are like, I mean, it's very generalized, but it's the same concept, which is like, oftentimes, I think that the way God works is God through everything is trying to create and build community. That's the way he does it. He's not going to, if you believe that your destiny is to have $1 million in your bank account, and you sit there and you pray every single day, give me my $1 million. This is my blessing. Give me my $1 million. Yada, yada, yada. It's not just going to appear in your bank account. It's not. You have to be out in community, meeting and sharing the gospel with people. And then somebody's going to pop up and be like, hey man, like, I have this extra $1 million. Like, you want that? You're like,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a dumb example, but it's conceptually the case.
100%. So first thing on the Ben Frank quote, yeah, I think every bumper sticker, the shorter they are, the more room they leave for interpretation.
Yeah.
So people can say, oh, it's negative, it's positive. It's like, it's neither. It's to get you
In this case, it makes the point.
talking about it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely can't say I know all the ways God works, but I'm a firm believer like that God helps those who help themselves. A portion of it is like, okay, you're like, I prayed for $1 million. Let's go back to it. Okay. He's like, I got 968 ways we can get you $1 million. One of them could be as simple as you have to be at this bar on Thursday because your friends invited you there. So the opportunity's there. I gave you these working feet and knees and hips and a car and a home and a shower to be presentable enough, and there's enough money in your bank account. I think you're prepped. I think I did a lot. All you got to do is be like,
go do it, man. Exactly.
Yeah. Totally.
Yep.
So
your man is sitting out there.
the help yourself
get it.
is much more minute,
Yeah.
I think, in that statement than people make it. They're like, oh, I got to do all this work. It's like,
You don't necessarily need do something syndrome, but you do need the ability for optionality.
Yeah.
And you need to set yourself up for chance. It just goes back to chance. Chance is my favorite subject. I don't know why, I love it, but I really do. And we're going to do one on chance here soon. That's going to be awesome. So back to single living by yourself. I think there is a element of expectation that we have to handle too, which is we can sit here and talk all day, and the stories that you tell are awesome, but it creates survivorship bias, which we've talked about previously, which is like, oh yeah, well this guy went out to the bar and he got this awesome commercial real estate deal and that was awesome. I went out to the bar last night and I didn't get anything, so I'm not going back. You know, like
so
set bad expectations.
yeah, survivorship bias, or is that unrealistic expectations for the person? That's like saying, I know every time I put a quarter in a slot machine, I'm going to make $1.
Yeah,
That's not reality.
true.
That's hopes and desires in randomness at that point.
It is, but the way the stories are told kind of imply it, which is, so let's talk about the slot machine idea. You hear a story from Jimmy Bob that says, he goes, yeah, man, I went to Vegas. Yeah, I showed up on Friday afternoon. I went down to the casino. First slot, I knew it was going to be a jackpot. Pulled the lever, ding, ding, ding. And I made 10 grand on a quarter, something like that. And you go, oh, wow, that's crazy. And now every time you go to Vegas, the first thing you do is go drop a quarter into the thing and try and hit the jackpot, and you don't get it. Well, here's what's missing from the story. I forget what the name he said, Jack, Billy Bob, whatever name I said.
Yeah.
That
Gambler.
guy's actually a gambling addict, and he's at Vegas every single weekend, and he's hit that jackpot thing 25,000 times. He's put 25,000 quarters into there. You've done it 10, and you're frustrated because it didn't work the same. So even if we don't go as much as like, this guy said this happened at the bar, I went to the bar one time and it didn't work. You still don't have context of like, was that guy an alcoholic and he was at the bar every single night? Like, is that what I have to do, or like what? So there is an element of survivorship bias. I think it is bad expectations at the same time. It can be.
Yeah.
But I just think people get discouraged. I mean, the number one thing,
understandable. Yeah.
dude, the number one thing on single people's mind is, when am I going to find the one? Right? Like when, maybe that's not the number one thing, but it's a common thing. It's a common thing. And I think the more times that they go out and don't see success, the more discouraged they are to go out again and try again.
It's like the data problems
is.
that we talked about before.
It is.
If all the data says, hey, this isn't working, you just shut it down.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And they don't. Yeah, okay. So let's just hint this before we drop off, because this is one that I want to have. We don't have to have it on the next episode, but we need to have it eventually. Especially Christian singles. And you can tell me if I'm wrong here. I could be way off base. But the Christian singles understand that there is a promise that there's someone out there for them, right? That God has made someone for them, and there is. And the longer they go without that coming into play, without them finding that, it almost starts to strip away their faith. Like, it almost makes them break down their faith, and they go, well, maybe the promise isn't, if the promise isn't real, maybe none of this is real. Maybe this isn't right. Am I wrong there, or am I right?
It's a feeling people can have. Sure. You better be really good about taking your inventory and looking at
What you do
what
have.
what has God asked of me.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Because if he's asked you to do something and he's waiting on that, and the person for you is on the other side,
There.
whatever that is,
Yeah.
and you're not doing it, well, okay. Is it going to break down your faith? Maybe, but you're kind of getting in your own way.
It's like the person who is like a daily habitual drug addict and quits their job because of mental health reasons, but continues to be a drug addict. And you're like, was that the reason you had the mental health problems? Like, same thing. Don't quit the faith because you're hiding from what God's telling you to do.
My experiences show, though, that's where the biggest fights happen.
Fights
Internally.
with God. Yeah.
Is right there. Is there's something you think you want, and you name it. And I was trying to apply name it, tame it. I think you name what you want, but you don't bother to tame what it takes to get that.
It's the manna.
Yeah.
You name what you want, and God knows what you want before you know that you want it. Mm-hmm. Manna's out there growing, and it's sitting there. And you're sitting in your tent because it's easier, because it's hot outside, because you don't want to sweat, but you're just asking for it. It's like, it's right out there. You just got to walk out there. Yeah, it's going to burn your feet. It's hot. Sand's hot. You don't have any sandals. But you get out there and do it.
Yeah.
It's sitting there. So there's an element of that to it. But also there's just this, and I've shared this with you, but I don't think I've shared it on here, but maybe I have. It's one of my favorite verses that I came across in Ecclesiastes. It says, it's Ecclesiastes 9:11. It says, "Again I saw that under the sun, the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to the intelligent, nor favor to those with knowledge, but time and chance happen to them all." And I think what people misunderstand is time and chance are biblical. Like, there is an element, Ecclesiastes says so, there is an element that every time you're doing this, you're flipping the coin. And it's not going to come up the way you expect it just because you did what you need to do. You got to be positioning yourself and be consistent, because eventually the coin is going to come up tails.
Yeah.
But if you're not consistent, like you said, being consistent, going out and setting yourself up in community, doing all of that. If you aren't out there with your head down being consistent, that one time it would show up heads, you aren't there.
I've heard people argue that in your scenario, well, God is playing chance with our lives.
No.
But in reality, gambling is what we do with chance. Gambling
Yes.
is what man does with chance. God gives us the chance, and what do? We react on it. Mm-hmm. We try to weigh it. We try to get more out of it by wagering bets, placing our efforts in it. In reality, he's like, I gave you the chance. I didn't say, it's like, that's what I gave you. You decided to weigh it one way or another and do something with that. That's your free will. I gave that to you too. So pick it.
That's interesting. There are people that they have do something syndrome with chance, and they try and master it.
Well, we have to do something with the chance.
We do.
But trying to master it is where it's not going to exist.
Or understanding that it's just chance. Because then there's also the people that think they can control everything and that it's all under control. And those are really the people that Ecclesiastes 9:11 is speaking to. Think about a lot of people get really frustrated whenever they see somebody that they think is dumber or less attractive or whatever, have more followers than them on Instagram. They're like, oh, this person has 50,000 followers and they're an idiot, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, it says the race does not always go to the swiftest, right? The wealth does not always go to the wisest, whatever it is. It's like the world just doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. There's an element of chance. And if you can't see that, you will let it eat you alive. You will say, how did that person who is meaner, uglier, poorer, which first off, you're being very judgmental whenever you think that. But
I was like, man, you really don't like this person.
But if you think that and you go, how did they find somebody before me? Or how did they get plugged into that community and I couldn't? Or whatever. You are already missing that there's an element of chance in it. And it has nothing to do with whatever characteristics that you rightfully or unrightfully apply to them. Has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with it.
If you're betting, you're wagering against yourself at that point.
Yes.
You're saying, like, here's all the bets that are against whatever think I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So we'll go into chance on that a little bit more next time. That's pretty much all the time we have for this one.
Nice.
But that was good. I will sign off with this. It's very stupid for me to be talking about being single and living by yourself, considering I'm not either one of those situations. But
well, you've done it, and you've gone through it, and you're past it. So you have before experience, during experience, and after experience. So, I mean, you can tell a complete picture.
Sort of, but I also, it's just it's good to make it clear that I have hindsight bias. It's the same thing as like, if you make an investment, it's your first investment ever. Honestly, that's how I still kind of view my relationship with Megan. It's like, that's the best investment I've ever made. Like I committed I committed that stock and I'm never going to sell that stock. And it's just going to it's going to go gangbusters for me kind of thing.
Dividends are crazy.
The dividends are crazy. But it's just like that where you make your first investment and it goes gangbusters. Now you think you know something. And it's very likely you don't. And you set yourself up for making very stupid investments later. So that's good context. Maybe I need maybe there's single people out there listening that need to tell me where I'm wrong and where I'm messing up. But it's the story I have. It's what I know.
That's, yeah, there's a lot to that. So talk to you later.
We'll wrap it.
Yep. Coffee.